Hello, and welcome to Teach Time in the Afternoon, where I, Miss Adventure in the Classroom, am here to be your critical, friendly neighborhood critical educator. There it is. I'm going to get it. And I will be talking about during this little Teach Time in the Afternoon, I'll be talking about my RIPE critical knowledge building system. If you want a whole rundown of what that exactly means, check out my video on Monday, where I go through what the system is all about in its entirety. But today is a day for just imagination. So we're going to be focusing just in on the letter I in the RIPE cycle today. On Monday, when we were discussing the whole system, we discussed how imagination is about going beyond, right? Stepping over the boundary of what we're doing and looking at what we're not doing, right? What else is there in all these different categories, right? We can open it up to what are humans doing? What are humans like? How else could we be like? What else could we look like? How else could we act? How else could we fill in the blank? That's what's exciting about imagination. And because it's such a huge, vague term, and like, what does it mean to bring imagination into your classroom? What does that look like? How can you structure it in a way that's really useful and grounded in meaningful academic subjects? That's what RIPE is here to help you do. So, to understand imagination and all its incredible elements, whoa, I've got a lot of people who have talked about it. What? Yes. Every week I pull a card from my knowledge of the people, by the people, for the people. And we have a lot of great thinkers, a lot of critical thinkers throughout time and across the world who've talked about imagination, almost as if it's critical to the human condition. I don't know. Maybe that's loony, but let's see what card we pull and how necessary this person thinks imagination is. I'm going to bet they're a fan. Let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Oh my gosh. I saw it before I flipped it because I can't read it backwards, which is also why I can't tell if it's readable for you exactly. It doesn't appear to be. So it just might be my camera. I'm trying, y'all. I will read it, however. It's Frances Hodgson Burnett, and this is from The Secret Garden, which maybe the best 90s movie. Super underrated. Watched it this summer. You guys, you've got to rewatch that film. I've actually written a blog post where I talked about this. It's my Blossom as an Educator, because I used a garden metaphor, because that's what we are. We're gardeners as teachers. That's the work we engage in. And I could not resist. I mean, when you think about a garden, come on, what imagery pops to your head? I hope, if you're lucky, like me, it's images from The Secret Garden, the 90s movie, which of course was from this lovely author, Frances Hodgson Burnett. Okay, so let's read what she has to say about an imagination. It's a good one. At first, people refuse to believe that a strange new thing can be done. Then they begin to hope it can be done. Then they see it can be done. Then it is done. And all the world wonders why it was not done centuries ago. Did I say whether she thought imagination was central to the human experience? She didn't have to say it. Pretty clear. I think I got it, Frances. Thank you. Yes, imagination is vital to how we engage in the world for precisely this reason. Then it's done, and all the world wonders why it was not done centuries ago. Because that's the power of imagination, right? It isn't reality. And we are very limited by reality, much to our chagrin. There are many constraints, physical, our own bodies, our own societies, the physical world, the big dog sitting right here next to me. Yes, sometimes there are problems, right? Sometimes there are constraints in what we do. You have to live on a leash, right? This is Rugby, by the way. He says hi. I'm not going to turn the camera. It'd be too difficult. But he's adorable and he's snoozing next to me. Okay. So I wouldn't imagine it any other way. That's pretty good. Okay. But that's the power of imagination is it can bring about things that should have been and haven't been. And there's the real kicker, y'all. Man, there are things that exist only in our imagination that should be existing in the real world. And if we don't know how to use this imagination to envision those things that are better than what is, if we don't strengthen that muscle, we're never going to be able to enact those things that we should have centuries ago. We'll look around and say, oh my gosh, what were we thinking? But of course, I'm jumping ahead of myself because Francis says a lot of things. Beginning with, we didn't think that right away. It's a process, always. Man, she has labeled some human phenomena here. This is totally a thing. We see it time and time and time again. Now, does that mean that humans are mechanistic creatures and we can be coded to react in particular ways and that everything's pretty much predetermined because this lady from I don't know how many years ago said this thing that's still true today and it seems to have always been true, so I guess humans are just robots and we can't change our fate and this is how it's always been and it's how it'll continue to be until the end of time? No. That's what imagination is for, to say, okay, thank you, Francis. This is a pattern. This is a human pattern. You nailed it because it resonated, I think, with all of us. I'll speak for all of us here, Francis. Thank you for that. It resonated. It was true. But if we can imagine something beyond this very real reality that we all experience all the time of people doing just this, if we can imagine a different reaction, well, if we can imagine a different reaction, why don't we engage in this exact process she's talking about? We can enact a different reality because we can imagine a different reaction. And yes, will this always be our tendency? Yes. And that's very good to know about. And in fact, when we begin to design new habits of responding to ideas and imagination, we need to keep that in mind that this is a powerful pull. Okay, we're not destined for this, but damn, we keep doing it. So there's something about us that falls towards this habit. And so we need to build up structures that keep that from happening because it'll happen again. We're never going to be above it. We need to figure out how to evolve with this. Okay, because if we keep doing this, I'm getting so tired. We have to learn from this. We have to not just be like, oh, thanks, Francis, for this nice little quote. I'm going to put this little quote up on my wall. No, Francis, let's change this. Let's act. In the critical tradition, this is what we do. Empowerment. We are learning how to connect knowledge to action. Every quote you read, you should think, why am I learning this? What action am I going to take from this? You're not just going to say like, oh, yep, and move on. That's not learning anything. That's acknowledging. That's not learning. Learning doesn't happen until you actively take this truth up in your life. So pretty cool. Pretty cool. I'm glad she wrote this down because she nailed a phenomena. And I think she's problematizing, right? She's not for this cycle. She's clearly reprimanding this cycle. And all the world wonders why it was not done centuries ago. Aren't we a comedically tragic species? At first, we refuse to believe it. Then we hope. Then we see it in our minds and we're like, okay, yeah, now that I've pulled it. At first, it was that's the thing about the abstract. With the imagination, at first, it's in this deep, dark place that we can't quite reach. Just like this phenomenon. Other people have definitely talked about this phenomenon before, so you may have noticed it in your own life. I bet you have, which is why it resonated with you. But other people have said these similar things, and you could have said these similar things. So, but because someone said it, you're able to pull this knowledge of your own. When was the last time you thought about this cycle of imagination? Maybe recently. If you care about imagination, maybe recently, but maybe not for a while. And even though it's old knowledge and you just haven't thought about it in a while, what she's done by naming it to you again is like you've sent your hook down, a fishing hook, back into the depths of your imagination, right? And slowly she's drawn it out of those dark waters. And now you begin to see it again, right? All ideas are like that. That's the function, that's the metaphysics of it. That's what it feels like, right? And we can come up with a million different metaphors, but it's something like that. There is something we can't quite grasp, we can't quite see, we can't quite get a handle on. Any of these sensory, we can't quite get to them, right? They're too far away. And so at first, when someone brings up an idea that has never even begun to orbit our minds in any way, shape, or form, when it's too far out there, it would take too much pulling for you to understand it. But here's the thing, once an idea enters your head, it starts to enter your orbit, my friend. It's on your hook. That's how the mind works. Sorry, you're learning, and everything you've learned, you put your hooks into. Now, how deep will it get in? Who knows? But eventually, what she's saying is eventually you say, oh, no, 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 it's too far. Impossible. But then, as it gets closer, because you're just naturally going to pull it in, man. As it gets closer, you start to hope that, oh, okay, now that you can kind of feel what it might be, those changes, it's changed your own gravity, right? As it gets closer. I'm doing a fisher person's metaphor here. A fisher. Can't that just be the term? A fisher. A fishing hook and a planetary metaphor. Forgive me. Okay. They're working together in tandem. Okay. So your gravity changes and you start to hope, oh, maybe now that I'm starting to feel it, maybe it could be. As it gets closer, you start to see it, but it isn't till you act that it becomes real. And then you're like, oh yeah, that's so obvious. Oh, it's so obvious because you were able to see it first. It won't be obvious if you hadn't been able to see it first, which is why when we visit other countries and other cultures and see other people doing things that were never in our orbit, it like we can't quite grasp it, right? We didn't think it existed because we just didn't know. And ideas are all like that. And we want to strengthen our imaginations. So we're pulling in these good ideas. Let's get good ideas out there, you guys. We need to be talking about things that matter. We need to be using our imagination towards the things that are essential. Check out my Tuesday morning show, Colors of Critical Life, for what's essential. We've got to be using our imagination and making these ideas, putting them out there in the atmosphere so people can get their hooks in them. Because yes, I'm not giving up on the dual metaphor. It's happening and it's great. You've never heard a better metaphor than this. I can't imagine a better metaphor than this. It was the only one I could see. So therefore, it had to be. And why haven't people been doing this centuries ago is my question. It's such a good metaphor. Wasn't the best. And that's what imagination's for. It's a nice testing ground, right? Where we can toss things around. Yeah, this one's not going to stick. And I'm fine with that. I'll let this dual metaphor die. Maybe. Will I? Who knows? But here's what I do know is that imagination is central to bringing to your students because we need their ideas. We need them. Oh man, there is nothing like a child's imagination. There's no bounds. They have universes more imagination than us because that makes more sense to them than reality, right? A lot of times there's so much happening out here that at least they're in control in there, right? And so they get to spend their time in their own minds exploring humanizing places for them, right? And that's exciting. And I want those to be actualized. So let's really strengthen those imagination muscles in school. And you might say, well, Sarah, how the heck am I going to do that? Actually, right now I'm Misadventure. I've got my cool Misadventure jacket on. I'm a curriculum creator in this jacket. You might say, Misadventure, why or how, really? Not why. We just hit on the why. Why do we need to imagine? Boom. How do we imagine? Well, that's where Ripe comes in. Up here, I have a touchstone, which these will structure your classroom discussion in meaningful ways around imagination. So definitely check it out. There's a link below. The one I was holding in the picture is we're learning a lesson that could have had a different history. Ooh, let's imagine different things about that. There are lots of touchstones that fall under this category. What things could have been different in the past? Interesting. If you begin to build your students' imagination muscles around academics, which is right now their job, their work, their labor that they spend their days doing with their energy, using their power to do, right? Whoa. Shh, not you, buddy. Shh. When they do that with academic lessons, it's a muscle that they'll be able to apply to different things. So that's why it's about your lesson. So you can adapt imagination to whatever you teach, be it science, history, language arts, math. I have created a Ripe learning system for each of those subjects. So they're not ready yet, but they will be soon. And maybe by the time you watch this video, if you check out the links below, there will be Ripe critical knowledge building systems for all subjects. Did I tell y'all that it goes on for a long time? Yeah, I bet we're like an eighth of the way done with the barking. So I'll go ahead and wrap up this video. I know, you too, huh? Not right now. Thanks so much for joining me. I will see you tomorrow when we talk about problematize. Just as important as imagination is the skill of problematizing. So I will see you then. Have a great day.